Gentlemen, you are both drunk on cosmic wine.
Welcome to the show. I'm Dr. Mark Sylvester.
And I'm Dr. Richard Schulman. This is Alt Psych.
Thanks for joining us again this week. Welcome. How are you feeling today, Rich?
I feel great. I know I'm not supposed to. We're supposed to be miserable because of all the insanity in the world. But, you know, I don't know. I try to feel great. It really helps. I always say great or excellent because I program my mind. It seems to help.
Excellent. Well, I mean, it's a perfect topic for today, too, talking about really something fundamental that we don't hear enough attention paid to. There's not, nothing but lip service on the topic, and that's about energetics. Not to be confused with Dianetics, but what energetics means to us as organisms, how energy plays out in exchanging information, exchanging matter. I find this quite fascinating as an engineer, but we're going to overlay that with a lot of the therapies that we spoke about before in the previous episode, to give kind of an overview of a little bit more of the spiritual side of the how and the why that these things work. So I think it sounds pretty neat, but I'm biased. What about you, Rich?
I never deny that I'm biased. I talk to patients about energy a lot, and sometimes they look at me like I have three heads. So sometimes I'll say, well, think of it like emotion, only it is a little bit more than emotion, but we can start there with it, you know, shifting emotional states. You know, 'cause people do energetic therapies like any other therapy. They want to feel better.
Yeah,
You know?
but you've got to really fundamentally understand the why. Like what does energy have to do with it? Because what I found is, I mean, what does a typical doctor do? I mean, you go to see your primary care doctor and they say, oh, your blood pressure's too high and your cholesterol is getting out of whack. You should really do that diet and exercise stuff, right? And everyone says, yes, I agree with you and I know you're right, but I'm definitely not going to be doing that. Or worse, they'll have the best intention to do it and then go home. And what happens? We fall back into our old ways. So I think by explaining a little bit more of the energetics behind some of these treatment techniques will engender more interest and compliance ultimately into making a change.
Funny you would talk about compliance, because compliance is the ball game and it's all emotional. They did a study a long time ago regarding flossing of all things. And they presented one group with every reason that you should floss, and another group had one line: just floss the teeth you wish to keep. And of course, that was the group that had 3 times greater compliance, because compliance is emotional.
Yeah.
How you and when we talk about energetics, in my mind, we're talking about patterns of behavior, patterns of thought, patterns of emotion, and how they move like weather systems through our bodies and our souls.
Yeah, and I mean, just speaking to diet and exercise, yeah, it's wonderful to tell people diet and exercise, but why are diet and exercise important? And I wanted to talk and explain a little bit about that from an energetic sense, because everyone would agree we're energetic beings, that we are constantly interacting with our environment. We're exchanging energy, we're donating energy in many different forms, whether that's, more measurable things like heat, or glucose uptake, or however we want to measure energy movement. There's also a spiritual component to it, a metaphysical component to it, an electrochemical component to it. The energetic body is often referred to as the ethereal body, and it too must exchange energy with the world. That's its currency in performing its function. And we may have good energy affecting us, we may have bad energy affecting us, we may have an interference, of
I like that one.
other energies, whether those are man-made or another person's energetic field. But to me, diet and exercise, if you look at it strictly from an energetic sense, the reason why it works, the reason why it helps, and the reason why what I'm trying to say will help motivate people to actually open their front door and march out it, and do some walking, do exercise, is because of the massive energy exchange, coming from all. If you think of this in terms of energy's coming in with every breath that you take in. Energy's being burned by your leg muscles with every step that you take, and toxins are being removed, and new healthy elements that are required for whatever biologic activity is being utilized is brought in. And so there's this dynamic exchange with energy. And looking at it from the diet side, you could look at the energy that the food itself brings you, whether that's high energy foods, high vibrational foods, greens, organic food, or fermented food, versus very low energetic, dense meat, fried foods, stuff like that. Those are things that you don't hear talked about too much, especially as it affects our emotional health and well-being. But I think right now are actually more important than ever, because everybody's energetics, they're, the way they're manifesting their emotions in this chronic anxiety state. It's important because these are all two powerful tools that we have at our disposal, and we can immediately change in order to help the restless, stir crazy, often irritable emotions that are streaming through people's days. So diet and exercise is a big one because of the energy exchange that you give and take from the environment.
I think of human beings as animated stardust. So, if we really go all the way down the rabbit hole, what makes us human? What makes this stardust that forms our bodies human? And then the question becomes, are we human beings having a spiritual experience, or spiritual beings having a human experience? And I actually would vote for the second. I think we're spiritual beings, and we experience these bodies and the interaction. So if we go all the way down the rabbit hole, it's all about energy and vibration. And, I feel better. This is just me. I feel better when I think of us as animated stardust. And
I love that.
It's the animation, that is about the energetics. And why do I resonate with you? I mean, why are there certain people that I really resonate with? There's a whole energetics point of view.
Because I'm awesome. That's why.
Well, but you might be awesome and I might suck and I wouldn't resonate with you,
Then we're both awesome?
Yeah, well, I don't know about that, but we certainly have the requisite fire energy, I guess. And we just get along, But the issue here is that in those energetics, in that exchange of energy, we can exchange it in a healthy way. It can be unhealthy. Certainly diet and exercise are two fascinating, fantastic, and important components. But I mean, I tell my patients all the time, pick an exercise you might actually like to do. Some people feel they have to do certain things. I mean, my dad could never get me to lift weights. I always thought that was kind of silly. But when I started doing Ashtanga yoga, which was very athletic and required a lot of strength moves, then it became more of an idea that I needed to be stronger. So there's a motivational component to all that. For diet, I had a patient a long time ago who was writing a book about organic food, and she gave me 47 reasons why people should eat organic food. And I said to her, "You forgot the most important one." She says, "What's that?" I said, "It tastes better." The idea here is we're not trying to force anything on anybody. We want you to eat organic. Yeah, it'll make you healthy, but it tastes better. And your experience of life will be more optimal, more fulfilling, happier if you can do basic, simple things that move the energy in a positive direction. I'll give you an example. I think the kosher food laws were the first food combining laws, you know, and there are foods that go together energetically and foods that don't. So what we're looking at is exchanges of energy, because we are exchanging with each other in the environment, you know. And if you take something like massage, I personally love massage. Okay, why is that a good thing? Well, number one, it's a kind touch, it's a gentle touch, and of course, you know, these days, touch is at a premium.
Yeah,
we're touch stars and touch phobic. You know, don't shake hands, bang elbows or something. But it does more, that loving, healing touch. And there are people who just have that touch. It moves fluid around. It'll help oxygen to get to certain places in the body, helps blood flow. But there's also this sort of intangible, and I think you're calling it energetics is spot on.
yeah, and I mean, it kind of dovetails into what we talked about in the previous episode about trauma being stored or physically located in certain regions of the body, and I find that fascinating, regardless of the mechanism of it, whether that's a pure energetic, or state dependent situation, whether it's a biochemical. You know, let's say that, I don't know, your adrenals kick out a bunch of yucky stuff, and and somehow in some plane that carries a message within it, or an experience or an emotion, most likely, and then that's gonna just park right here in your right shoulder, or, you know, it'll become this knot. So by the mechanical action of a massage therapist working that, we'll just call it a psychomuscular lump, right? Effectively, they're massaging out that untamed emotion that's gotten locked into the body.
I like that, untamed emotion. I'm writing that one down.
I know, I'm just reaching.
I'm gonna steal that one. That's a good one.
But I think of massage in an energetic sense. And it's more than just like, oh, rubbing my muscles, they loosen up, it feels nice. There's an energy exchange between the therapist and the client. There's energy exchange even with the mechanical action of the muscles and squeezing out lactic acid. And, you know, that's why they tell you to drink a big glass of water afterwards to remove these toxins that have been kind of liberated from your tissues, soft tissues. But I also think about the energetics, the feedback of the nerves that are innervating the muscles that are being worked, and it working backwards.
Well, you know, the really good massage therapists that have worked on me, I know that unconsciously I let them in because I trusted them. You know, you can touch people and they may have trauma stored, not just physical trauma, but emotional trauma. Somebody you don't trust touch you there, you're gonna set up a wall. You're not gonna want that to happen. Somebody you trust, and this is why when I work with body therapists in the trauma work that I do, I often have anywhere from 2 to 6 individual sessions with the patients, so they get used to me. They know I'll protect them when the body is being engaged. So I think that, by the way, just plain massage is a wonderful thing. The energetic exchange, the you know, sort of the material exchanges, the what did you call it? As an engineer, the mechanical exchanges are very, very powerful and healing. I actually heard someone say that massage was lazy man's yoga. Because you can put your body in positions, you know, that you can't ordinarily get to, you know, to move energy along. And in fact, a lot of the yoga practice that I've done in the past my yoga teacher would talk about energy and how the process was to, he felt we needed to contain energy to burn up impurities in the body. And it really, it worked. It was really fantastic.
That is
You know?
interesting. It makes me think of acupuncture. You know, that's one of the oldest, you know, Chinese medicine that still obviously is practiced more now than ever. And really not a strong Western consensus on the mechanism of action of it. But again, we think about it in terms of energetics. That's precisely how it's thought to work, and it goes along with what we're saying. Instead of manipulating a large muscle group or actual, you know, hand to back contact and sharing both, you know, energetic space, but thermal energy, you're using tiny little needles, and your acupuncturists know these precise points, nodal points, in order to insert the needles. And that ultimately is to help assist the energy flow, the body's native energy, which the Chinese would call qi or qigong, and open up those energetic rivers, if you will. Almost, I picture like energetic nerves, and it helps facilitate movement. And with the movement, it helps facilitate what we were talking about before, energy exchange. Because we must exchange energy with the world, whether we're alive or dead. We're exchanging energy with the world.
More when we're alive, probably. I think of the needles, by the way, when I love acupuncture. My body doesn't react well to drugs and alcohol, but acupuncture makes me really stoned, and I love it. I think of the needles as little antennae that interact with my energy, with kind of, I don't know what else to call it, the universal current, you know, that's all around us. I think we're in Luke Skywalker territory now. And I remember the first time that I had acupuncture, it was really a profound experience, because I felt my whole energetics, if you want to coin a word, changing. And I remember as the physician was putting the last needle in on the top of my head, I said, does that one get me HBO? Because it really felt like I was having little antennas all over my body. And, you know, the funny thing is that the Chinese have been doing this for 5,000 years. They know a few things, you know, and if Western medicine can't come up with how the process works, maybe they could just kind of say, yeah, we kind of know it works. You know, let's, we don't, you know, I don't know if the process is as important on this one as the outcome, because I find it to be a fabulous healing technique. And hopefully we'll have an acupuncture physician on our show pretty soon so that they can speak for themselves. You know, the other modality that I really like is craniosacral, which kind of comes under the heading of massage, energetics, because craniosacral is a light touch. It's the weight of a nickel. It's 5 grams. And I took I personally took the first craniosacral course years ago because I wanted to see what it was. I don't have the hands, you know, to kind of do it. But it was fascinating how a light touch it's almost like they could use the bones of the spine and the skull to move the soft tissue and to create space for flow of energy and physical things like oxygen, blood flow perhaps. But what I found in craniosacral, kind of like acupuncture, is I feel great. And I've worked with craniosacral people in emotional release therapy, because there's something about when somebody touches you in a healing way, in a gentle way, in a loving way, that it opens the door for expression of things that are held deeply inside of a person, and more importantly, deeply inside of the body. So personally, I like craniosacral therapy a lot.
I do too, and I find it very fascinating because, like you said, with light touch, you can get profound changes in not only your body's physiology or kinesiology, kinetics, but the emotional shift of it too. So there's a lot of energetics on different levels at work that make that a legit bona fide therapy that a lot of people either don't know about, or they don't understand, or if they do understand it, poo-poo it because they don't understand it in this way.
Well, you think that it's kind of crazy because in both of our training, some kind of therapeutic touch is not included anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but if you go back in history, laying on of hands has been a therapeutic modality for millennia. You know, so the ancients knew that there was something going on there. The work of the DOs, the osteopathic medicine, moved into that realm, and then you know, people like John Upledger brought it to the masses. They don't like him because he taught it to massage therapists, but because of him, the whole world can have this, and it's a very, very beautiful and elegant healing technique. Now, the one thing that I would say is sometimes, you know, it can open up emotional things that may be over the head of the practitioner, but that's why people like you and I still have jobs, you know.
Right, and that's why I want you to tell us a little bit about hypnosis from an energetics sense. Like, how does hypnosis work energetically?
Sure. Well, if you think about it, hypnosis is just a certain state of attention. People go in and out of it all the time. They just don't realize it. Imagine that you're driving a car to work. You go the same way every day. You're thinking about something else, and all of a sudden you're at work. You were in a light trance, and some other part of you, you know, kind of drove the car. We've all had that experience. On the way into sleep and the way out of sleep, there's this in-between state, the hypnagogic, hypnopompic states, where you kind of can see little movies and you have odd thoughts. Those places are also hypnosis. Now, from a therapeutic point of view, hypnosis is just a psychophysiological state of focused attention. That's it. And there's only three kinds of people who cannot be hypnotized: children under the age of 2, people with a very low IQ that would characterize as mentally retarded, and people who say no. Okay, you're not going to be hypnotized if you just say no. But given that most people wish to cooperate, the idea is to set up a psychophysiological state where you're open to suggestion, open to imagery, and that it matches in a state-dependent kind of way where certain insults, traumas might have happened. Now, it doesn't have to be that dramatic. If you look up, one of the hypnotic techniques that I will use is have somebody pick a spot on the ceiling and then have them blink. And at a certain point, your eyes will get tired and you close them. Well, we're using a physiological response. You look up, your eyes are going to get tired. That's 1 + 1 is 2. But the hypnotist, or I don't know if anybody uses the word hypnotherapist, is using ordinary physiological things, events, to pair with the patient's experience. If I say, look up at that spot on the ceiling and blink when I count to 1 to 10, eventually in that blinking, people are going to want to close their eyes. So they, okay, you can close your eyes, you can relax.
They get tired, they run out of energy.
Exactly. And then you could take the greatest, in my opinion, the greatest hypnotist was Milton Erickson, the great psychiatrist, who used a confusion technique. They said that Erickson could hypnotize you by shaking hands with you in this weird way that he did. I saw a film of it. Confusion will put you in a trance. So you say something really confusing, for example, I'd like you to project yourself into the future, looking back at this moment in the past, which of course is the present now. And as you create this time thing, you say, well, I'd like you to relax. And all that mess, all you hear is, I'd like you to relax. And you're looking for something to latch onto in the confusion, so you relax. Now, the bottom line on hypnosis and on a lot of these energetic therapies is my faith that there's a part of each and every human being very deep and very wise, who loves, protects, and guides us. I'm trying to connect with that part, the deeper part of that person. So I don't really do anything to the person except connect with them in a more open way and guide them into the places that they need to look at. Now, people think that you have to be so out of it that you cannot, that you're literally dissociating, you're not there. That's not true. People can make great progress with a mild trance, especially for things like smoking cessation. You know, people come for hypnosis, so smoking cessation, weight loss, certain, you know, behavioral medicine things, and it can be very effective.
So, do you think that the when you have someone in under hypnosis or in a deeper state of hypnosis, you've actually changed, ostensibly lowered their energy level or their energetic state, or is it best to think of it as a frequency that they're tuned into, or a vibrational energy?
I like the idea of a frequency or vibrational energy. I think of it as an opening in the armor. All people have armor, and they're supposed to. People walking around without defenses at all are a mess. The idea is to have healthy defenses where you can let people in. So if I can create a relationship with the person, and then, you know, we're doing brain entrainment a little bit with talking in a certain way. Frustration, by the way, is another way that people go into trance. So if I say to you, you know, I'd like you to take a nice deep breath and let it go. And as you let it go, I'd like you to relax. You're going to really hone in on that word. Watch, you know, politicians actually are very schooled in this. Watch films of great politicians, and when they give their speeches, the vocal inflections, the patterns that they run are very, very powerful. They entrain the brain, they create confusion and frustration so that people will literally hang on their word. Now, any tool, we're back to Luke Skywalker, any tool can be used for good or for no good. You know, so we want to have, see, the thunder, God said, yes, better be good, you know. The idea.
Stomach, I'm quite hungry.
Okay, well, I'll go get you something. But we have to finish this first, okay? Seriously, now once you said food, you distracted me. Okay, what we want to do is to use it and to make sure that we connect with the patient for the patient's highest good. And when I work at the deep levels of consciousness, I say those very words. I say, you know, this is for the patient's highest good. This is to help, to heal. This is for the patient's highest good and best interest. Because I'm speaking to that part, you know, once again, if we're going energetics, going deep inside, go all the way around to what animates the stardust and what has to be open for profound change to occur. And, you know, we're looking for profound change. We want, people don't come in to say, you know, well, my fingernail, you know, hurts. They want change in their lives.
So let's take more of a hands-off approach. What about something like Reiki? What can people just, I guess, superficially understand about Reiki in the sense of exchanging energy?
Well, once again, you know, we're back to something ancient. I mean, I took once again, I wanted to see what it was. So I took, you know, like white belt Reiki, I don't know, you know, like super beginners Reiki. And you could feel the energy. I mean, you could feel, you know, and I felt it often when I do the trauma work with body therapists. Sometimes they'll need more hands and they'll tell me, put your hands over here or there. And I can feel it almost like a buzzing of bees. If you're tuned in, there's an energetic exchange. And I'll give you another example. I delivered my younger boy, literally delivered him. If I kick back, close my eyes, and imagine that moment, my hands can still feel that profound moment. that moment is energetically in my hands. And it's a beautiful moment and creates great comfort for me when I remember it. I'm just remembering it now. It makes me smile. Reiki, which is not to be confused with Kung Fu, by the way. Somebody said that to me. I think it was you, actually. You know, I was just a beginner. I'm certainly not a Reiki master by any way, shape, or form. But the idea that you would lay your hands on somebody
over someone,
or over someone, you know, because the energy field, I mean, they have documented, Western medicine has documented an energy field that goes like 4 to 6 inches off the body. But I mean, it goes way beyond that.
Yeah, that's just measurable, easily measurable.
Yeah. So, but I found that even the Reiki was very, very powerful. And if you go back in history, Mesmer, who is credited with creating hypnosis, Mesmer got his ideas from priests doing laying on of hands and talking to people and doing spiritual healing. Mesmer, by the way, is very, very interesting dude. Did you know that Mesmer worked on Mozart?
Wow.
Isn't that wild? Mozart's father he knew Mesmer, and he brought young Wolfie over to have him work on him, and, you know, have him start writing symphonies when he was 6 years old. I think it kind of screwed him up pretty good. Anyway, Reiki, I mean, have you experienced Reiki personally?
Yes, I have. It's, you know, buzzing, heat, vibration, emotional shifting. All of those are very hard to deny, I think, even for a lay person. But I'm interested in going even deeper down the rabbit hole. Can we do that? Can we do that? Can we go deeper? All right. My producer says we can go deeper. Let's talk about soul trauma healing and past life regression.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Real Brian Weiss stuff here, which
okay.
Fun fact, the reason I married my wife is we were both reading his Many Lives, Many Masters book at the same time, you know, a few years ago, I don't know, like 22. And we just, you know, talk about synchronicities or energy matching. We were both interested in that at that point of our lives. You know, when I was in college, you should be interested in doing whatever you're supposed to be doing in college. But that was kind of the resonance moment, the synchronicity that caught our attention and our interest in each other. But, you know, Brian Weiss's work, but tons of people have done work on this, tons have done research on it, myself included. How do you think energetics is key to soul trauma healing and past life regression? Because now we're talking about, now we've lost the body, right? We've lost the physiologic body. Now we're talking about healing ostensibly a soul or an energy body, or entering some sort of an astral plane, remembering a past life. How do we equate that with energetics, and why is that so powerful, therapeutically powerful and helpful?
Well, okay. Now, I was one of Brian Weiss's early acolytes. I was trained to do past life regression therapy by a guy, a hypnotist in Phoenix, Arizona, who was a friend of mine. And it was quite a profound experience, and it really changed the way I looked at reality. I didn't know about reincarnation. And then all of a sudden, I'm in World War II, and I'm not that old, you know. So the idea of past life regression therapy being powerful, you know, was very, very personal for me. Now, as I started to investigate it, there was a book called Where Biology and Reincarnation Intersect by Ian Stevenson, who was a psychiatrist out of the University of Virginia. And what he did was he went into places like India and Burma, where they believe in reincarnation, and little kids who would spontaneously talk about it, they would investigate and see if they could find stories from people who died, and he found that he could match up birthmarks with how the person claimed they died, and then go into that village, which may have been nearby, and find that history. Now that is very, very powerful data that provides scientific data that reincarnation is a real thing. And the amazing thing about that book is that it's boring as hell. You know, I mean, it's just a textbook. So if you really have insomnia, it's a great cure for it. Now, Brian Weiss's wonderful book, Many Lives, Many Masters. And after I trained with the Jim Mead, the guy in Phoenix, he told me to call Brian Weiss. And after I got past his secretary, who protected him like a lion, he was very, very supportive of my work. Now, here's the problem with past life regression therapy. It's not a problem therapeutically. I've never gotten an address or a phone number I could look up. And Ian Stevenson said that the past life regression therapy is an artifact of the unconscious. Well, I don't really care. I've seen people heal.
Right.
Heal physiologically, heal emotionally. So I don't really care where it comes from. I've been regressed to 15 different lifetimes. Some of them I'd say, you know, I use my imagination. But there are 4 of them that was so uncanny real that I don't know how I could have made them up. And in the end, it doesn't really matter because you're not responsible for what you did in a past lifetime, only what you learned from it. How does it apply to the present issue? It's a profound experience, I will say that. Have you looked at that too, Mark?
Yeah. I mean, I actually did a summer fellowship at the University of Virginia, pouring through a lot of Stevenson's data, which I found really fascinating as well. And then Bruce Grayson took over the department of perceptual studies. And believe it or not, at one point I was considering replacing him because I found this area between what would some people would consider like Eastern mysticism and Western medicine. I found that super fascinating, and I found, you know, rigorous scientists like Stevenson or Grayson devoting their careers to trying to bridge that gap and help us have a more holistic understanding of science and medicine. But the implications, of course, are way beyond that. The end of the day, like you said, the most important goal you and I are going for is healing. And whether that happens through soul trauma and doing in-depth hypnotic like work on traumatic events in a person's unconscious memory or pre-conscious or previous life conscious, or the act of hypnosis and actually taking someone back through their past life regression, not only is fascinating and interesting, but extremely therapeutically beneficial and helpful in ways that I don't see any other interventional therapeutic modality doing it. It's very transcendent, and you almost see the before and after, a psychic shift as a result of this experience. So we talked a little bit about out of body and near-death experiences having similar transformative results. But if we think of it in terms of energy, it ties all of this together. And I think it was a really interesting topic to go over today, and just kind of keep in your mind when you're looking at any interaction, whether that's interacting with your food, yourself, your exercise, your thoughts, what you surround yourself with. If you think of it in terms of energy, like the good Nikola Tesla advised us to, if we wanted to understand it, always think of frequency and vibration. It's sort of a unifying theory of a lot of different healing modalities. So I appreciate your thoughts today. We're out of time, but next week we're going to actually be talking about something fun, a little bit more personal, which is, you know, what do the good doctors do to care for themselves? One of our readers thought that our viewers, I guess, thought that would be a great topic to talk about. So join us next week. You'll hear all about it.
Okay, everybody, be well.
Be well.